G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Mad Dragons Vodcast pre-game show. I'm Donny Bell. I'm joined by Joe Hickory and John Towden. Joe, I'll start with you. How do you see the Dragons lineup in terms of the team list? Obviously, we've got a few outs, but also a big possible in for the game. How do you see the way that the team list lines up?
Yeah, it's exciting, but I'm not too sure. Do you think he'll bring in Mcguire or will he bring in Jackson Ford? I'm not too sure, but it's either way. It's a big loss for losing blocker. As far as I'm aware, that's our biggest. It really is that our only change for tomorrow's game so far.
Yeah. More or less. That's the only one. Obviously, Palasa Farmasili, who played the first couple of games, he was out with a shoulder injury, but he did play in the reserve grade game today. So effectively, he's been dropped from the team as well. But from the team that beat the Eels, that's the only change. Blocker's out, and at this stage, we're not sure who's coming in. Jackson Ford is named. He's the 17th man named on the list at the moment after the 24-hour warning. But he played 80 minutes in the reserve grade game today. I don't think he's going to be playing somehow. I think it will be Josh Mcguire. Just on Josh Mcguire, Johnny, how do you see? How do you see that signing? Are you happy with the signing, or are you one of the ones that thinks he's a bit of a grub and doesn't want him at the club?
Oh, mate, I absolutely think he's a grub, but I've been so happy since I've heard that he was going to sign a couple of months ago. Yeah, it's what we need in the club for sure. We need that bit of aggression, just to top off what's going on at the moment. You can see the aggression. Blocker's stepped up. A few of others have stepped up, especially Sims. It's been good to watch. And to see a bloke like that come in who hopefully can get on board with Hook's plan of team first, what we're hearing, and put himself, on the line. I think it's a great signing. It's going to be huge for us. I think just add that depth. Look at Farmasili going back to reserve grade, Jackson Ford, a few others. Jackson Ford looked pretty good in his 10 minutes or so against Newcastle. I saw him on the sideline. I was at the game, and he's gotten bigger. He looks good, and he went out there, I think, with a point to prove. And he actually ran the ball hard, tackled hard. I was very impressed with him. So to have those blokes going back to reserve grade and bringing a bloke like Josh in, he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to play better than he was at the Cowboys, or he's not going to be in the team next week. So yeah, I'm really stoked.
Joe, one that I want to ask about is Kade Ellis. He came into the side last week. I've got to be honest, I think his performances in the reserve grade leading up to this have been somewhat underwhelming. I wasn't expecting too much for him, but how did you see his performance against Parramatta? He played about 35 minutes or so. How did you see it?
Well, like every forward in the game against Parramatta, everybody stepped up. Everybody played their part, and he didn't do any worse than anybody else. He functioned and played very, very well, I thought. But one thing I will say is that he came across from the other club with expectations, so whether or not he's going to live up to those expectations is yet to be seen. I don't think he's been given much of an opportunity. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think like most players, most of the bench forwards in particular, one of the things that Hook seems to do really well is he gives them a role. He gives them a role to play. And that's what Kade Ellis, for me, did last week. He just went out and played his role. He ran for 90, 95 metres. He made every single one of his tackled at 100% efficiency, didn't miss one, didn't have an ineffective tackle, just did what he had to do to play his part in the victory.
Yeah, right. I was just saying that's what I was happy with his defence. I saw him, he was solid. So, yeah, can't ask for more than that.
This is one of the reasons why I was a bit funny about the Mcguire signing, because we do have a lot of forwards, we do have a lot of depth in the forwards, and I didn't really make much sense. But, I understand everyone's a bit excited being a former Origin player, and he brings a lot of mungle to the team and to the game as well and everything. But I don't know, this is why I think we've had already enough stock, enough cattle to fill these positions. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, you've got to have 30 players in your squad. I mean, you have to fill those 30 positions in the squad. And if you look at the results over the last few weeks in reserve grade, it's all been down to the fact that we don't have enough depth in the forwards. You know, we're getting flogged in reserve grade because we don't have any middles locking up that middle third in the reserve grade competition. They're getting hammered. So I know we've got a few injuries in that area that is weakening it, but I think bringing in a guy like Mcguire is certainly going to shore up our middle and provide us with a bit of depth. We've still got one more position to fill. John, who do you see, or what type of player would you like to see fill that last spot? What are we lacking?
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know where we're lacking at the moment, mate. Being all over the junior, like the reserve grade and all that, like yourself, you probably know more than us on that one. I'm not as switched on with that this year as I have been in previous years. But yeah, you let go of Blacker, brought in a second rower. Blacker was a big boy, obviously still a year or two off, but then he brought in another front rower. So it sort of, it didn't sort of make a lot of sense, but Mcguire fielded the role. Hook knows what he wants. He knows that the Dragons fans want immediate success. They want success now. It's been too long. And that's why he's getting in these blokes he knew from the under-20s at Brisbane and the young blokes at Brisbane. He knows what they can do. And he's brought them in for a specific role this year.
And that's well said, and you're right, John. You're right, John, in the sense that the coach's lifespan isn't very long. He's only got a 2-year contract, so he needs immediate success if he's, to sign up for another 2 or 3 years, So he'll do whatever he can, and they blood what they can. They blood in, but I suppose you're right. Experience is called for sometimes, and they do bring in players so that it's very much an industry where. It's very results driven, and if there isn't any results, there's not much of a career for you, and it can be quite short. So, yeah, I do agree with you there. 100%.
You might have also seen something in Josh Mcguire that he can teach the young blokes too coming through. Like he's got an old head on. He's been around, and to pass that knowledge on to those young blokes coming through, Jackson Ford, all those young blokes coming through. It could be very valuable. I don't know if Josh is that type of bloke, but would.
Okay, so just changing focus a little bit. Have a look at our opponents, the New Zealand Warriors. Having a look through their team, where do you see their strengths and where do you see their weaknesses, Joe?
Their strengths are their forwards, and their weaknesses, I believe. Their halves are okay, but maybe around the hooker role. Their hooker is not as good as McCulloch, so their forwards are going to be a good test for us. But I really don't see across the board. They've upset a few teams this year, and I don't see across the board where they're going to struggle. So we're going to have to step up and consider this game just as serious as any other. And I think every game in the NRL is like that. But look at today's results, for example, what Manly did to the Gold Coast Titans. No game can be taken for granted, No team should be taken for granted. So we have to bring our A game. As the coach that he is, Hook, I'll guarantee you, he's already picked out their weaknesses and where their ball lying skills fall and their defensive lapses could be. So I think a lot of homework and research would have been done. As a fan of the Dragons, not knowing too much about other clubs, I couldn't tell you pinpoint exactly where their weaknesses are, but I'll tell you where our strengths are and where we can dominate and win.
Well, you've got the floor, mate. Take us through it. What are the Dragons' strengths, as you say them?
Our strengths are in our forwards, mate, and and I think also having Dufty there in our back line, chiming in and doing exactly what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. We didn't see much of that with Dufty against Newcastle, but we did see a hell of a lot of it against Parramatta. And if you can bring the combination of what we did with Newcastle and Parramatta, there's not going to be too many games we lose this year if we take a little bit of both and combine them into the one game. We didn't see a lot of that from Dufty, and as I said, against Newcastle, but we saw it against the win in against Parramatta, more grittier, and it was a good win too, a very, very good win. So, yeah, that's where I think our strengths lie.
So, Johnny, talking about the strength of the Warriors forwards, I don't think that's any more clear than when you look at their bench. Ben Murdoch-Masila, Bunty Afoa, Kane Evans, they're all big units that come on, they run hard, they run straight, they look to have an impact off the bench. You know, do the Dragons have the right tools at the moment to be able to handle what they're going to bring on?
My opinion is that, Joe said it right earlier. Our strength has been our bench. We fight their bench with our bench. And honestly, I think they're going to get murdered, like tomorrow. Their forwards, they're not going to know what hit them. We miss some blocker, but, even Merrin, like Merrin's coming into the starting lineup apparently. Who would have guessed that when he first re-signed? Who would have guessed that he'd been playing like he is over the last few rounds? He's actually making meters and getting through doing offloads and hitting hard too. Alvaro is another one. He's finding his form that led him to being Parramatta's Player of the Year a couple of years ago. He's starting to step up too. So I think we can match anything they throw at us and put something over them too. But I just can't see how, if our forwards get on top, which I believe they will without too much of a problem, that Nicarima and I think O'Sullivan, his name is, I don't know too much about him, the halves for the Warriors, I don't see how they do anything really. I don't really rate them that highly, the halves. I can see it being a bit of a score tomorrow if we get it right in our forwards.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that the Warriors, the way that they line up, they have to take us on through the middle. And every team that's tried to do that so far this year, we have hammered them. We have taken on better than what the New Zealand Warriors have got to offer, and we've won. So I don't think that there's anything the Warriors bring that we should fear. But we have to play as good as we have been doing. We have to shut down their forwards, because if they get those late offloads away, two guys like Nicarima and Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, from that second phase, they can create all sorts of headaches for us. So we're still going to have to play really well. But if we play the way that we have been, I think I agree with both of you. I think we win this one pretty comfortably. Last word from both of you. First try scorer and man of the match, Joe.
First try scorer, Matt Dufty is my tip for first try scorer. Man of the match, I'm going to give it to Clooney. I reckon he's going to have a stand up appearance. So yeah, they're my tips.
Yeah, for me, I can see one of our wingers getting over. I think Dufty's trying to be that unselfish ball player, which is, he's standing up. I've been a bit critical of Dufty in the past. But I can see him stepping up and getting better through this year, having known what his role is. He hasn't had that in the previous years. But I can see one of our wingers, probably Mika, getting the first try. And I can see actually someone like Dufty getting man of the match. He's gotten better each game. And I just think that he's going to have a massive game tomorrow on the back of a strong forward pack. Just going back quickly, one thing I wanted to mention is the big game for the Dragons is next week. The Anzac Day game is going to be massive. And it is a worry to me that the team's going to have their mind on that a little bit too. So I'm hopeful that the team comes out tomorrow, focus on the Warriors all week this week, and just focus on what they've got to do tomorrow and just go in and smash them. Instead of having their mind on the big games next week.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a trap.
I do agree. I mean, obviously there's a big build up towards an Anzac Day match. I think the advantage that we've got is that it's a full week away, so it's not a short turnaround into that Anzac Day match. The hype isn't starting to build. They can focus fully on this match and then the hype will start to build from full time right through to kick off on Anzac Day, and it should be an amazing week coming up. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the pre-game. Hopefully, we're absolutely correct. Johnny, you just got one more for us.
What was your first try and man of the match, mate?
Oh, my first try and man of the match.
Good question. Good question.
Yeah, no, fair cop. I've got the same as you. I think Ravalawa will be first try scorer. Man of the match, I'm going to go for Josh Kerr to cause some damage out on the edge and have a big one here against the Warriors, to stand up against this intimidating pack and have a big one. I think he's due. I think he's been a little bit quiet the last couple. I think he's going to have a big one here against the Warriors. But yeah, should be a fantastic day tomorrow. Really looking forward to having a longer chat to you guys tomorrow night after another victory. Go the Dragons!